Hi, it's JB Wagner and welcome to my channel called Unconventional Wisdom. I've got over 50 years of photographic experience, and today I'm going to talk about, do you really want to shoot film? Because I shot a lot of film and go all the way back to my high school days when I was the head yearbook photographer, among many other things, in 72 to 73, and shot a Canon F1 with the three lenses I have right here. Not these weren't mine, but I've since bought the same ones that I had. So I know all about film. I had my own darkroom, processed all my own work, had my own business, did my first wedding when I was 16 years old. So I have a lot of experience with film. So you don't need to like and you don't need to subscribe, because I'm just doing this for fun and to share information. And I like to give you the conclusion up front. Do you really want to shoot a film camera? Well, I'll say, if you really think you're really interested in it, you've got to imagine yourself setting up a black and white darkroom to process your film and print your pictures, because half of the creativity in the film era was in a black and white darkroom and having that back end to your side of shooting the camera. And now what happens is you shoot film, whether it's color or black and white, you go get it processed, and then it's going to get scanned in all likelihood and get uploaded to some site where you're going to download the images, which are now digital. And all you're getting is a film look that probably has a certain type of grain or a certain limited dynamic range and/or grain and a certain look which you may like, but the question is, can you achieve that without paying $8 to $15 a roll for 36 exposure film and a whole bunch more for the developing process for just 36 pictures? And keep in mind, until you finish that 36th picture, you're not going to take the roll out of the camera in all likelihood either, so you have limited flexibility that way. So you really have to do a gut check about whether you want to shoot film and why, or shoot a film camera, or whether or not you want some of the experience that went along with shooting a film camera in digital, with a digital camera. And you can achieve a lot of the same kind of user experience with a digital camera when you set it up right to mimic the film cameras of yesteryear. So right now the Fuji, X100 yes, is all the rage and has huge orders in place. They're going to be back ordered forever, 500,000 orders right out of the gate. And here's the reasons why it's so popular. One, it has an optical viewfinder as well as an electronic viewfinder. Okay, so an optical rangefinder viewfinder, you're just looking through glass and it's framed with the same perspective as your lens. That's what that is. It's not a through the lens viewfinder like these cameras here. These are SLRs, single lens reflex, where the light goes through, hits a mirror, goes up to the pentaprism and goes to your eye. The mirrors are up in here. That's the same as a DSLR, which was just a digital single lens reflex camera. So these were much more common than the rangefinder. The rangefinder's most famous nameplate is Leica. The Leica M6 is the most famous rangefinder camera ever made, and is still being made new for film, but then there are all the digital variations of the Leica M6. But you're talking, for the film version and new, it's over $5,000 without a lens. So that's a pretty steep price tag to get into the film camera or the film experience. So the cameras I have sitting in front of me are all available used and are all DSLRs and all shoot film. One thing you have to realize when you buy a film camera is that you must make sure you can get a battery that will operate the meter, at least in the oldest cameras. And a lot of the camera spec batteries that are no longer available, you have to make sure there's a substitute battery or method, and it may throw the camera off by an f-stop or something. So this camera, the Canon F1, was Canon's response to the incredibly successful Nikon F and F2 series camera, which these cameras were system cameras. They're very elaborate systems with big motor transports for the film. There's all different types of viewfinders. You can pop off the viewfinder just like that. You can look through the focusing screen. And they're really overkill if you just want to have a film experience. You're not going to buy all these system pieces. Still a good camera. But this is your basic camera with a light meter. And the basic functions are manual focus. This is a beautiful lens with beautiful focus dampening. This is Canon's FD. It's an SSC series lens, S.C. You've got an aperture ring. This one does have a mode to put it in automatic mode, so it works with newer cameras like this Canon A1, which is in the 70s, which has electronics in it, whereas this is a completely manual camera, and the only thing that's operated by the battery is the light meter. That's it. The camera otherwise is completely mechanical. It has a bayonet mount, and you just turn that ring. In this case, the newer FD lenses are removed with a button instead of with this ring. So if you get the right film camera, part of the experience is focusing. I'm a kind of an anti-autofocus guy. What happened to me with cameras like this, especially certain ones, the viewfinders were really big, really bright, beautiful to view through and compose through. And it was part of the experience of the creative experience of photography. So Minolta invented autofocus, and Canon followed soon thereafter. And when they came out with autofocus, they decided that you don't need a really great viewfinder because the camera's doing the focusing for you. So you can look through a much darker, smaller viewfinder, and I hated that. I mean, it really diminished the experience to me. So that, to me, having a bright, really good viewfinder is part of the joy of photography. That's why I like certain digital mirrorless cameras that have really great viewfinders, because you can replicate the experience of viewing through one of these cameras with, in a lot of ways, with a modern mirrorless camera. That's another video, or another couple videos where that'll come up. I'm not going to get into it too much. Up here you have your speedometer, not your speedometer, your shutter speed dial. This camera actually goes to 1/2000th of a second, which is pretty fast for the era. These other cameras are newer, and one of them, this Contax camera, which was made by the Yashica company, and this is one of the end-of-the-line film cameras. Took the manual focus film camera. It was like the last of the manual focus film cameras. This one's a Contax RX. This actually shoots up to 4,000th of a second. This has a beautiful viewfinder. Now, these three cameras all have manual wind, whereas this one is wound by a battery. So you don't have... I'm a left-eye shooter, so this actually does get in my way. I have to move the camera away a little bit. But this still has the aperture ring and the shutter speed dial here. It has auto. You can go to shutter priority or aperture priority. It's some of the things we think of today. But you can run it in full manual mode. This camera, the Minolta XT5, there's another one called the XT11. I believe this series was also manufactured by Minolta for Leica, and there was a Leica badged camera that's similar. It's a beautiful camera. The shutter has just a wonderful sound. It's almost a jewelry-like feeling to it. There's tons of lenses available if you can find one of these, an XT5 or an XT11. The viewfinder is absolutely fantastic on this camera too. So that's another one that's a joy to use. Now, so the experience is a slower experience. There's no motor drive unless like this had a motor drive, but you had to be a pro sports photographer or something to be going through that much film. hand crank. You take your time to take your pictures. That's probably part of the appeal of the vintage retro thing. So the Fuji camera, it has the shutter speed dial, and it has, their lenses all have the aperture ring. It has the ISO like we used to set the film speed. This camera has under and over exposure. So it mimics you can use it automatically, but if you want to use it like a film camera, you can. And that's part of the vintage deal, I guess, is being able to do that. So I get it. I love cameras like this. I don't shoot them much because of the hassle of film, frankly, and the price. And I have to take it to a lab, and all I get back is digital. I don't have a darkroom, so like I used to. I spent hours and hours, untold hours in high school in my darkroom. I must have listened to the best of Cream and the best of the Doors and Crosby, Stills, and Nash on 8-track tapes over and over and over without even realizing it as the hours went by. And it is a magical thing to see a print appear in the chemical in a tray, but the chemicals are not environmentally friendly. That's a consideration as well. You can buy everything I used back then. You can buy the canisters to develop the film. You can buy the trays. You can buy the enlarger. You can buy the lenses for the enlarger. You can do the whole drill. And it is a very creative and rewarding experience, but you have to have the right room. You have to have the right plumbing, you have to have temperature controls, and there's a lot of waste involved, so you got to give that full consideration. So that's the end of this video. Now I'm going to follow up with this, like how to achieve some of the fun and satisfaction of this era of cameras and of the Leica M6 styles camera with inexpensive digital cameras of today, and to enjoy the best of both worlds, if you will. The other thing about the Fujifilm I'll say is camera is that it has built-in filters for the different films that Fuji made historically that give you the look right inside the camera, shooting JPEGs, and out of camera they come looking like the film that they sold or still sell. I use the Nick collection in DxO Photo Lab to achieve what I feel is the same thing. And a lot of your high-end editing programs have all kinds of film look filters. And there's a variety of these sorts of tools available, and some digital cameras from other manufacturers have film look filters built in. But the Fuji one gets really high reviews in that regard. So I'll touch on all these different things in future video, but I wanted to get started with an introduction to film photography and whether or not you really want to buy a film camera or not. Thanks for watching.